Hi everyone, we are here to discuss how Malaysia can beat Indonesia in terms of GDP. GDP, also known as Gross Domestic in Product, which is a monetary measure of the market value of all the final goods and services produced in a specific time period by countries. GDP is usually useful for comparing the living standards between different countries. Thus, improving the GDP is always the top to-do list in any country, including Malaysia. For this discussion, we will start by giving opinions one by one, followed by deciding the best way among them. So, Lee Shuangwei, do you mind to share your thought first?
Thank you. So, in my opinion, Malaysia should emphasize more on moving the economic sectors towards Industrial Revolution 4.0, which means applying IoT into the business. It is not as simple as trying to digitalize the business using Excel files, but the point is to make the business smart. We don't need fully automation without humans, but we can make the system to control the worker and the process better. As a result, this can help to reduce the loss caused by the human laziness and carelessness and optimize the business process based on the information collected. However, Malaysia still falls behind Indonesia in terms of network. For example, 5G. Currently, we only have limited coverage in KL, Putrajaya, and Cyberjaya, while Indonesia they already have 5G coverage in at least 9 cities last year. So, currently in our country, there are grants that help SME in manufacturing and related services sectors, such as smart automation grant. Since COVID-19 has propelled whole world, including Malaysia and Indonesia, towards IR 4.0, I think that Malaysia need to put more effort in this matter in order to beat Indonesia in terms of GDP. That's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lee. What do you think about Lee's idea, Len?
Yes, I agree with his idea. Industrial Revolution 4.0 is inevitable, so we must be prepared for it. Applying IoT into a business can greatly increase the efficiency of the business because robots are more efficient than human beings. When our business production increases, I believe our country's income and GDP will increase too.
How about you, Gong Yaowen?
I partially agree with Lee's point of view. Malaysia can further widen the market globally and extend its services to international clients with the implementations of Industry 4.0, thus increasing the GDP. However, Malaysia is still facing some challenges in implementing Industry Revolution 4.0. One of the challenges is the shortage of the necessary skills, talents, and knowledge for adopting Industry 4.0, especially in areas like IT, AI, IoT, robotics, and many others. Hence, the government should focus on upskilling the existing human resources and producing future talents. Besides, higher adoption costs and a longer payback period are required for industrial revolution processes and technologies. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Melanie?
Yes, I think that's a good point, as the connectivity between digital technology and the internet offers a more comprehensive and holistic approach to the manufacturing sector. This is because the Industry 4.0 solution can give the manufacturer the ability to predict any potential problems that are going to occur. The precautionary measures can be taken with the IoT system present in the factory. Conversely, I think that the adoption of this IoT system will add more stress and financial burden, especially for small businesses and elderly business owners.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. In my opinion, Lee Shuangwei has a good point. With Industrial Revolution 4.0, we can have greater productivity and we are able to produce higher quality products. This can make Malaysia more competitive in terms of exportations. in the long run, implementation of IR 4.0 also reduces the operating costs of companies, which means more net profit. Now we proceed to the next idea. Len Ziyang, can you share your idea, please?
Yes. In my opinion, Malaysians should contribute by spending more money domestically. This is because GDP growth is often driven by consumer spending. Therefore, Malaysians should be aware of their roles in improving the GDP of their own country. For instance, Malaysia should contribute more to GDP growth by traveling domestically. In fact, most of the Malaysians prefer to travel overseas, although Malaysia is one of the destinations foreign travelers will choose. According to statistics, Malaysia was ranked number 4 in tourism contribution to GDP among Southeast Asia countries. This shows how crucial tourism is in improving the GDP of Malaysia. Furthermore, Malaysians should buy more products made in Malaysia instead of seeking after other products from other countries. To make this a reality, encouragement should be given by the parents and teachers to the students by instilling the mind of Malaysia is not worse than other countries to the students since they are young. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. What do you think about Len's idea, Yu Wei?
Yes, I think spending more money domestically will help to improve GDP. But I don't think influencing Malaysians to buy local products since they are young will help. I think people spend money only on products that are worth the money or that can help to do their job. So I think it is the local products or services that needs to improve to compete against foreign products in the local market. That's it. Thank you.
Gong Yawen, do you agree with Len's suggestion?
I think this is a good point, as consumer spending is the most significant component of GDP. So encouraging Malaysians to spend more domestically can increase GDP. The government may impose tariffs to raise revenue or protect domestic industry from foreign competition, and so that make the domestically produced alternatives seem more attractive. However, this might not be the best way. In my opinion, private saving and production are more important than aggregate consumption. If consumers spend too much of their income now, future economic growth could be compromised because of insufficient savings and investment. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Gong. Melanie, do you agree with Len Ziyang's idea?
All right. I think it's true that supporting local products and travel domestically can help the local economy and increase GDP growth. But I think this will motivate the consumer to spend unnecessarily on wants and not needs, which is stated in an article where buying local trend is just a watered down version of protectionism and would not benefit communities. There is a survey pointed out that consumers' preference is tipping towards global brands rather than local brands. This is due to consumers' belief that global brands offer products of higher quality because of their global availability and sales. I think with all these mindsets, I'm not sure that creating awareness of buying local product will promote GDP growth significantly. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I partially agree with Len Ziyang's point of view. Buying local products ensure the money to circulate within our own country, which will contribute to the development of infrastructure like schools, libraries, roads, and parks. Local businesses also provide jobs and wages to residents and contributions to charitable non-profits. However, local products do not have as much variety or selection compared to the imported products such as fruits, vegetables, high technology devices and appliances, and many others. Therefore, I think people still rely on imported products, and thus promoting the habit of buying local products will not significantly improve our GDP. Okay, Gong Yawen, what is your opinion on how Malaysia can beat Indonesia in terms of GDP?
From my point of view, the government can spur economic growth by spending money to build or repair the infrastructures needed for commerce and society as a whole to thrive. Infrastructure is not limited to roads, bridges, and sewer system, but also technical systems such as networking equipment and servers. So having the top-notch infrastructure increases the productivity by enabling the businesses to operate efficiently. For example, when roads and bridges are abandoned and in working order, trucks spend less time sitting in the traffic. The informational technology infrastructure enables many businesses to share and move the data in a way that promotes efficiency within their workplace. Besides, infrastructure spending creates jobs involved in the planning and implementation of various projects. These include both white-collar and blue-collar jobs, as engineers and their laborers are needed. It is also capable of spawning new economic growth. For example, the construction of a new highway might lead to other investments. For instance, gas stations and retail store opening to cater to motorists. Therefore, the Malaysian government should allocate more funds to improving the infrastructure. The government also can encourage the private companies to involve in infrastructure improvements through public-private partnerships, which can allow a project to complete it sooner or make it a possibility in the first place. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Song-Wei, do you agree with Gong Yao-Wen's opinion?
Yes, I agree with her opinion. As she said, improving infrastructure can increase productivity and enable business to run smoother, which I believe will help in improving the Malaysia's GDP. That's all. Thank you.
How about you, Len Ji-Young?
Yes, I agree with Con. Improving infrastructure for commerce and society use is significant for both sellers and consumers. This can tremendously impact the efficiency of a business. Infrastructure such as roads are often used by business for delivery and supplying purposes. Therefore, it's really important to maintain them well to increase productivity as well as GDP of Malaysia.
How about you, Melanie?
Yes, I think Con has a good point too. Building new infrastructures and upgrading them can make it more convenient for people to go anywhere. Government can increase the number of infrastructures, especially in the tourist attraction places. And this will not only attract more tourists, but also increase the economic growth of the country, as more people will come to visit due to the ease of transportation in Malaysia.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. As for me, I also agree with Gong Yao-Wen's point of view. Infrastructure such as highways and light rails are able to ease the people to travel to different places. For example, people from rural areas are able to travel to cities to work easily. Such infrastructure also provides greater mobility for suppliers, which can then generate more income. Now it is Melanie's turn to share your idea. Melanie, please.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. So in my opinion, I think that the high inequality in income between the rich and the poor tends to have a negative effect on the economic growth. So I think the government can overcome this problem by using the supply side policies, SSP. SSPs are the policies that influence the movement of aggregate supply in an economy by increasing productivity without having to sacrifice rapid growth. From a study done by the economists, who are Andrew Burke and Jonathan Ostry of the IMF, they found out that the country with higher income inequality rates have a shorter spell of economic growth than those countries with more equality. While income inequality seems to be unavoidable due to volatility of the labor market and nature of the jobs, there are some macroeconomic policies that the governments and economies can adopt. Therefore, through the implementation of the SSP initiatives, Governments ought to spend more on education and provide fund allocation for upskilling training programs to improve unemployed workers' occupational mobility. With a greater education and job skills, individuals are able to be gainfully employed, produce more goods and services for both local and overseas markets, or start their own businesses, either locally or abroad, thus earning better income in the process. Needless to say, increase in national productivity will ultimately lead to higher GDP for our country. That's all from my point. Thank you.
Lee Suan-Wei, do you agree with Melanie's opinion?
I think I agree with Melanie's opinion, but I think that supply side policies might take much longer time to take effect. For example, policies such as education might take like 20 to 30 years to have effects on the economy. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
How about you, Len Jiang?
I think Manali has listed out a good point. In my opinion, income inequality among a country's people will affect its economic growth. This is because higher economic inequality reduces the opportunities available to the poor. Some of them do not have a chance to study and they find it is hard to find a job. When the low-income people are having problems in employment, the GDP of a country cannot be improved. Therefore, in order to improve our country GDP, we need to pay attention to the problem of income inequality in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. How about you, Gong?
I think Melanie have a good point too. The fundamental problem of income inequality is the inequality of education. Causes of educational inequality include poor infrastructures and quality of teachers in rural and remote schools and many others. The example of a Sabah girl who climbed a tree to get an internet connection to take her exams show the inequality of educational opportunity between the regions and classes in our country. So because of this, the vicious circle caused by lack of education, such as losing out a job opportunity, committing a crime due to the poverty or underage marriage, will make it difficult for the vulnerable class to be outwardly mobile. Hence, the government should create a more equal urban-rural environment, and an inclusive education system will help the underprivileged groups achieve upward mobility. That's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I totally agree with Melanie. By reducing the gap between the rich and poor, more people will be financially available for better education, which will bring them more job opportunities in the future. As such, more people will be capable of contributing their knowledge and professional skills in different sectors. Also, higher income means higher purchasing power among the society, which can generate more economic growth. Now it is my turn to share my idea on how Malaysia can beat Indonesia in terms of GDP. From my point of view, Malaysia should emphasize the manufacturing sector in Malaysia. The major manufacturing activities in Malaysia are rubber and oil palm processing, logging and timber processing, electronics, semiconductors, and many others. Among all these, Malaysia's main export is electronics. According to statistics, Malaysia is ranked as one of the top 10 exporters of ICT products. In 2020, Malaysia was the third largest exporter of semiconductor devices in the world with $8.67 billion. Countries in Asia such as China, Japan, and South Korea are the countries with top GDPs, and their GDPs are mainly contributed by manufacturing. This shows how important the manufacturing sector is in improving Malaysia's GDP. Therefore, with such excellent foundation, Malaysia should keep the momentum going by giving more support to the manufacturing sector. For example, the government can provide financial support such as subsidies to manufacturing companies or provide lower tax rates to those who are involved in manufacturing sectors. Encouragement should also be given to students to get involved in the manufacturing sectors by providing scholarships to those who further studies at universities with relevant courses. That's all from me. Do you agree with my opinion, Lee Suang-Wei?
Yes, I agree with you. So I think that manufacturing sector is going to benefit more and more as we proceed more into IR 4.0. Because of this, manufacturing will be more efficient, smooth, and more productive. So I think that emphasizing on the manufacturing sector is a must for Malaysia GDP growth. That's it. Thank you.
How about you, Len?
Yes, I think you have a good point. As Malaysia has a good amount of resources, such as rubber and oil palm, we should make use of them by processing them and manufacturing their products. In fact, we export products such as oil to other countries like Thailand and China, and this has been increasing our country's income. Therefore, manufacturing sectors in Malaysia should be emphasized, as this is one of our main income sources, and it greatly improves our country GDP.
Thank you, Len. How about you, Kong Yao-Wen?
Yes, I agree with your point. One of the popular sector for the foreign direct investment FDI inflow into Malaysia is the manufacturing sector. For instance, many global automotive companies and international component manufacturers have established their operations in Malaysia, including Toyota and BMW. The profits generated by FDI contribute to corporate tax revenues in our country. Besides, FDI also allow the transfer of technology and gain employee training in the course of operating the new businesses, which contributes to human capital development in Malaysia too. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie, may I know how do you think about my points of view?
Yes, I agree to your point too. So when Malaysia emphasize on the manufacturing sector, governments will import less goods from other countries and become one of the exporters. This can reduce the rate of money flowing abroad to pay for the imported goods. Besides, the job opportunities will increase correspondingly as the manufacturing factors increase. The industrial sector is able to provide a wide range of employment opportunities, and this will definitely reduce the rate of unemployed workers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. After listening to all your opinions, now we have to decide the best way that Malaysia can beat Indonesia in terms of GDP. So I will start first. Personally, I think Kong Yao-Wen's idea, which is to provide more infrastructure such as schools, highways, airports, LRT, and others, is the best way to improve Malaysia's GDP. Schools are important to raise children's intelligence, which will contribute to economic growth in the future. While highways, LRT, and airports are able to ease the transportation of people and expand the market of different sectors across the country. For example, the agricultural products can be easily sold from rural areas to different cities. What do you think, Lee?
I think I'm same with you too. I also agree with Kong's idea, which is to improve the infrastructure to improve the Malaysia GDP. But I think that we need to be careful in choosing what infrastructure we want to invest in, to prevent waste of resources, and we really invest in the infrastructure that really can benefit our country GDP. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Len Ziyang?
I also think that Khan's idea of improving infrastructure is the best way that Malaysia can beat Indonesia in terms of GDP. Infrastructure is the connection between businesses, which greatly improves the efficiency of a business. So when a business efficiency increases, its productivity also increases. Therefore, the government is responsible for improving the infrastructure, such as roads and networking equipment. The government should allocate more funds in the financial budget for infrastructure improvement. I believe this greatly helps Malaysia in beating Indonesia in terms of GDP. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What do you think, Gong Yawen?
In my opinion, creating a more equal urban-rural environment can increase economic growth in the country, and this can be done by focusing on infrastructure development. These infrastructures includes industry buildings, roads, bridges, education, or health services, and telecommunication systems. Infrastructure development can impact the employment rate, productivity, and income. Studies also show that infrastructural development is crucial in driving several important sectors in the country, such as manufacturing sector and agriculture sectors. The basic infrastructure as the advancement in this aspect will reduce the isolation among different areas. It can also integrate the local market and the local economy with the minimal cost incurred. The impact of infrastructure development is also related to the quality of social services, especially in education, health, and the quality of life for the rural communities in general. Therefore, the development of basic infrastructure in the rural areas is a holistic approach where it could be the solution to the problems of inequality in rural areas, thus improving our country's economic growth and the GDP. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Melanie?
While I agree with most of the points raised by my teammates, I personally feel that human capital is the best asset that any country can have because human capital and economic growth have a strong correlation. A knowledgeable and skillful employee will increase productivity and contribute more revenue to the company and nation, ultimately leading to higher GDP growth. There are studies that urge improvements in human capital will make a more substantial impact through differences in the quality of education and the importance of human capital in the innovation process. As Newton Isaac once said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." And this means that the frontier knowledge is an important key to achieve sustained and inclusive economic growth. Hence, in order to improve a long-term GDP growth, our country should give more attention in the education system to prepare the students for productive, impactful careers, and in spurring the innovation necessary for a sustained economic growth. That's all for my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. So in conclusion, among all the ways suggested among us, the best way would be to improve the infrastructure in Malaysia so that Malaysia is able to beat Indonesia in terms of GDP. That's all from us. Thank you for your participation and cooperation. I hope you have a nice day. Thank you very much.